Hi guys, let's read the social issues and social justice section of the 12th series of ALS Current Affairs 2019-2020. So the first topic in this section is COST India, COAST India, Collaboration or COVID Action Support Group. So why was this in the news? India Observatory and open source database has come up with a GIS enabled dashboard that includes an India map reflecting the movement of migrants in real time on their long journeys, often on foot, along with facilities and relief organizations on their routes. Now let's come to Cost India. The platform has collaboration with Anand based Forest Ecological Survey FES as its main nodal point. It draws information from 55 organizations on the ground, mostly in villages, and aims to make such data available so that it would enable governments. So it would enable governments and small local civil society groups to be of assistance. The map matches time and spatial data on administrative facilities in the area, transportation and healthcare facilities of an area, and summaries on the fly in real time of people passing by. Features of the portal. Four elements are sought to be brought together in this portal. The first one is location of migrants and vulnerable people. The second is their specific needs. Third is location of key infrastructure on the way, which can double up as a rest center or quarantine space. And the fourth point is location of relief and rehabilitation, providing NGOs and civil society organizations. About India Observatory, the Foundation for Ecological Society, the Foundation for Ecological Security FES and NGO working on conserving natural resources at the grassroots has brought together a unique ecosystem of tools, open data platform, India Observatory, to help understand the status of local level resources and facilitate the action plans for conserving them. The data made available on the India Observatory platform has been pulled from various sources and dates as far back as the 1960s. India Observatory was set up in December 2019 with FES focused on ecological issues about forest water bodies, conservation, etc., that needed a bird's eye view or a satellite's vision. It is a research unit at the London School of Economics and Political Science, LSE. Now let's come to the next topic, that is Kangra tea and its medicinal properties. Now, why was this in the news? The chemicals in Kangra tea are found to be effective in boosting immunity as they can block coronavirus activity better than anti-HIV drugs. So the chemicals in Kangra tea are found to be effective in boosting immunity as they can block coronavirus activity better than anti-HIV drugs. Now let's come to Kangra tea. Kangra tea is a tea grown in Kangra Valley in Himachal Pradesh. Both black tea and green tea have been produced in the Kangra Valley since the mid 19th century. After a feasibility survey in 1848 showed the area of being suitable for tea plantation, a Chinese variety of Camellia sinensis. So, a Chinese variety of Camellia sinensis was planted across the region. Kangra tea is known for its unique color and flavor. The unique characteristics of the tea are attributed to the geographical properties of the region. Kangra tea was given the geographical indication, that is the GI status, in 2005. So, what are the benefits of Kangra tea? Using computer based models, the scientists screened 65 bioactive chemicals or polyphenols that could bind to a specific viral protein more efficiently than commercially available anti HIV drugs approved for treating COVID 19 patients. These chemicals might block the activity of the viral protein that helps the virus to thrive inside human cells. Now let's come to the next topic, that is the impact of a reverse migration. So why was this in news? Recently, in his newly launched book, Reviving Jobs: An Agenda for Growth, Santos K. Mehrotra, professor of economics at Jawaharlal Nehru University, said that the current reverse migration due to COVID-19 pandemic has set the country back by 15 years and will hamper the economy in the long run. Now let's come to the impact of reverse migration. Following the COVID-19 lockdown, almost all industries and different economic activities came to a halt, deteriorating the conditions of daily wage earners, most of which are migrants. With no availability of livelihood and worsening conditions, reverse migration started with all migrants returning to their native states by any means available. These migrants are over 450 million, whose movement can be directly or indirectly linked to the search for employment. They provide key contributions to high growth sectors of construction, manufacturing, and urban services at the destination sites. So, what is reverse migration? Reverse migration refers to the situation when laborers, workers, and people start migrating back to their native place in the backdrop of non availability of livelihood and job opportunities. So, what are the causes of migration? Migration has always been a strategy in which a majority of workers in India used to fulfill their aspiration to uplift from poverty and to access livelihoods that promise decent work. There are many reasons for migration, like climate change, political issues, economic issues like poverty and unemployment, religious persecution, etc. For most of the migrants, families dependent on the remittances they send and lockdown have increased their difficulties and forced them to move to their home states. So, what are the problems of migrants? Most of the migrants recruited through unfair channels, underpaid and overworked. They are engaged in the environment compromised of occupational safety and health. Cities are overburdened and underprepared to provide guaranteed social protection to these migrants, often deny them access to adequate food and nutrition, quality health care, housing, and water and sanitation facilities. Now let's come to the impact of reverse migration. Migrant workers are typically hand-to-mouth consumers, earning subsistence living and spending a large part of their income in the local economy. This contributes to another layer of demand which will now cease to exist. In their capacity as cust- and in their capacity as consumers, they are a part of an informal economy which generates and sustains volumes for the FMCG industries, which will take a blow due to reverse migration. The lack of demand from the migrant workers and the mini economies they help sustain implies that forward and backward linkages to the formal sector will be weakened. The reverse migration will put stress on the native states as it quashes the remuneration flow from other states, and at the same time there will be question of employability of returned migrants. Reverse migration could destroy India's tribal communities, largely concentrated in 10 states and in the northeastern region. What is the way forward? A program addressing the problems of returning migrants, like employment, health, must be devised by states as well as center. A proper movement strategy must be devised for future action if the migrants return again to work. A fiscal stimulus for the demand side must be formulated so as to provide immediate monetary support to migrants. Plan for job growth at a rate faster than the number of entrants into the labor force must be devised to address the issue of unemployability. Decent work opportunities for all migrant workers should be provided in the home state as well as respecting their fundamental rights. The focus should be on the knowledge centric development by bridging the knowledge gap between a city and a village by imparting skills and knowledge. Now let's come to the next topic, that is faith trials. So why was this in the news? Recently, Mumbai headquartered Glenmark Pharmaceuticals announced the commencement of a clinical trial of a combination of two antiviral drugs, favipiravir and omifenovir. So it announced, that is, the Glenmark Pharmaceuticals announced the commencement of a clinical trial of a combination of two antiviral drugs, favipiravir and omifenovir, on hospitalized patients of moderate COVID-19 in India. The clinical trial of this new drug combination will be called FAITH, F-A-I-T-H, favipiravir plus omifenovir. So it is favipiravir plus omifenovir. efficacy and safety trial. As many as 158 hospitalized patients of moderate COVID 19 infection will be enrolled in two randomized groups for the drug trials and efficacy study of drugs. The study will examine whether early administration of a combination of favipiravir and umifenovir enhances antiviral efficacy of COVID-19 patients. The two antiviral drugs have different mechanisms of action, and their combination may demonstrate improved treatment efficacy by effectively tackling high viral loads in patients during the early stages of the disease. Duration of treatment will be 14 days and patients will be discharged after a clinical cure and two consecutive negative tests. Now let's come to favipiravir and umifenovir. Favipiravir is an oral antiviral drug approved in Japan since 2014 for the treatment of novel or re-emerging influenza virus infections. It is being described as a unique mechanism of action by which it inhibits viral replication. Omifenovir impedes the viral attachment to cells and acts as a viral entry inhibitor, and it exhibits modulatory effects on the immune system and reduces interferon production. So it induces. Okay, the umifenovir impedes the viral attachment to cells and acts as a viral entry inhibitor, and it exhibits modulatory effects on the immune system and induces interferon production. Both favipiravir and umifenovir inhibited virus infection in vitro and have shown efficacy in COVID-19 clinical trials. Now let's come to the next topic, that is the social stock exchanges. Now let's come to why was this in the news? A working group constituted by the Securities and Exchange Board of India, (SEBI) on social stock exchanges (SSEs) has recommended allowing non-profit organizations to directly list on such platforms. Now about social stock exchanges. The Social Stock Exchange (SSE) is a platform which allows investors to buy shares in social enterprises vetted by an official exchange. The Union Budget 2019 proposed setting up a first-of-its-kind SSE in India. SSE will function as a common platform where social enterprises can raise funds from the public. It will function on the lines of major stock exchanges like BSE and NSE. However, the purpose of the social stock exchange will be different, not profit but social welfare. Under the regulatory ambit of SEBI, a listing of social enterprises and voluntary organizations will be undertaken so that they can raise capital as equity, debt, or as units like a mutual fund. Why SSEs? India needs massive investments in the coming years to be able to meet the Human Development Goals identified by global bodies like the UN. This can't be done through government expenditure alone. Private enterprises working in the social sector also need to step up their activities. Currently, social enterprises are very active in India. However, they face challenges in raising funds. One of the biggest hurdles they face is apparently the lack of trust from common investors. Now let's come to its benefits. There is a great opportunity to unlock funds from donors, philanthropic foundations and CSR spenders in the form of zero coupon, zero principal bonds. These bonds will be listed on the SSC. At first, the SSC could become a repository of social enterprises and impact investors. The registration could be done through a standard process. The SSEs could be categorized into different stages such as idea, growth stage. So it will be idea, growth stage, and likewise. Investors can also be grouped based on the type of investment. Now let's come to the next topic, that is Global Vaccine Summit. So why was this in the news? The Prime Minister of India addressed the virtual Global Vaccine Summit on June 4th, 2020. Now let's come to Global Vaccine Summit. The United Kingdom hosted the Global Vaccine Summit 2020. It raised 8.8 billion US dollar from 32 donor governments and 12 foundations, corporations and organizations to immunize 300 million children and support the global fight against COVID-19. 567 million US dollar also raised for new innovative financing instrument to COVID-19 vaccines for low and middle income countries. The funding will help immunize 300 million more children in the world's poorest countries against diseases like measles, polio, and diphtheria by the end of 2025. It will also support health systems to withstand the impact of coronavirus and maintain the infrastructure necessary to roll out a future COVID-19 vaccine on a global scale. The UK remains the Vaccine Alliance's largest donor, pledging the equivalent of £330 million per year over the next 5 years. It also saw the launch of the Advanced Market Commitment for COVID-19 Vaccines, COVAX AMC, a new innovative financing instrument to provide access to COVID-19 vaccines for low and middle income countries. AstraZeneca became the first vaccine manufacturer to sign up to the Gavi COVAX AMC. The Serum Institute of India (SII) has become the third supplier of pneumococcal conjugate vaccines (PCV) under the pneumococcal Advanced Market Commitment (AMC) and the first developing country vaccine manufacturer to access the global PCV market. So the Serum Institute of India has become the third supplier of pneumococcal conjugate vaccines (PCV) under the pneumococcal Advanced Market Commitment (AMC) and the first developing country vaccine manufacturer to access the global PCV market. A memorandum of agreement signed between Gavi and the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent (IFRC) to protect the world against the threat of epidemics by increasing coverage and equitable use of vaccines globally. Gavi, GAVI, It is an international organization created in 2000 to improve access to new and underused vaccines for children living in the world's poorest countries. It brings together developing countries and donor governments, the World Health Organization, UNICEF, the World Bank, the vaccine industry in both industrialized and developing countries, research and technical agencies, civil society, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and other private philanthropists. Now let's come to the next topic, that is ARPIT, ARPIT. So why was this in the news? Recently, the Indian Air Force IAF designed, developed and inducted an airborne rescue pod for isolated transportation, ARPIT. This spot will be utilized for evacuation of critical patients with infectious diseases including COVID-19 from high altitude areas, isolated and remote places. Supporting the Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative, only indigenous materials have been used to fabricate this pod. Requirement of an air evacuation system with facility to prevent spread of infectious aerosol from a COVID-19 patient during air travel was felt by IAF when the disease was declared as a pandemic. So what are its key points? Lightweight isolation system. The pod has transparent and durable cast perspex transparent plastic that is sometimes used instead of glass for enhanced patient visibility, which is larger, higher, and wider than the existing models. The isolation system caters for a suitable number of air exchanges, integration of medical monitoring instruments, and ventilation to an intubated patient. In addition, it generates high constant negative pressure in the isolation chamber for prevention of infection risk to aircrew, ground crew, and healthcare workers involved in air transportation. High efficiency particulate air. It utilizes high efficiency particulate air. It utilizes high efficiency particulate air HEPA H13 class filters and supports invasive ventilation using transport ventilators. HEPA. It is an air filtration system designed to capture at least 99.97% of fine airborne particles, dust, pollen, mold, bacteria with a size of at least 0.3 micrometer. Cost effective. It has been developed at a cost of rupees 60,000 only, as compared to the imported systems costing up to rupees 60 lakh. So if it's imported, then it costs rupees 60 lakh. But now, as we have developed it indigenously, it costs only rupees 60,000. Now let's come to QS World University Rankings 2021. So why was this in the news? Recently, QS World University Rankings 2021 shows a decline in the rankings of the Indian Institutes of Technology, IITs, and the Indian Institute of Science, IISc. Only the newer IITs in Guwahati and Hyderabad have shown some improvement. So what are the key points? Only 3 educational institutions from India. The IIT Bombay 172, IISc Bengaluru 185, and IIT Delhi 193 feature in the top 200 list. Despite their centers, flagship institutes of eminence, IOE scheme to boost the Indian presence in these global rankings, the total number of Indian institutions in the top 1000 global list has fallen from 24 to 21. In private universities, BITS Pilani and the Valor Institute of Technology (VIT) have dropped out of the top 1000 list, but OP Jindal Global University has climbed to the 650 to 700 band in the rankings. Out of the six parameters, Indian institutions got zero scores on the ratio of international faculty and students while scoring well on research impact measured through citations per faculty. India also scored poorly on faculty student ratio because of counting only full time faculty, whereas American universities include PhD students who are teaching or are research assistants. Earlier in 2020, IITs jointly decided to boycott the World University Rankings released by the Times Higher Education (THE), questioning its methodology and transparency. One of the reasons for a drop in Indian universities' rank is lack of sufficient efforts. Other universities across the world are making increasingly intense efforts to increase their educational offerings. A committee of IIT directors has been formed to see how Indian institutes can improve the perception about them abroad and also make efforts to enhance the quality of standards within the country. Now let's come to suggestions. The government should launch a campaign for improving educational institutes, similar to Incredible India, which promotes tourism in India and engages with the travelers. Success should be based on five pillars. The first one is not for profit status. Second is strong commitment to faculty hiring and research. Third is focus on internationalization. Fourth is devotion to humanities and social sciences. Fifth is drive to build a reputation through students and employers. Institutions of Eminence Scheme. It is a government's scheme to provide the regulatory architecture for setting up or upgrading of 20 institutions, 10 from public sector and 10 from the private sector as world-class teaching and research institutions called Institutes of Eminence. What are its objectives? Excellence and innovation, to provide for higher education leading to excellence and innovations in such branches of knowledge as may be deemed fit at postgraduate, graduate, and research degree levels. Specialization, to engage in areas of specialization to make distinctive contributions to the objectives of the university education system. Global rating, to aim to be rated internationally for its teaching and research as a top 100 institution in the world over time. Quality teaching and research, to provide for high quality teaching and research and for the advancement of knowledge and its dissemination. So, what are its benefits? Autonomy. Institutes with IOE tag will be given greater autonomy and freedom to decide fees, course durations, and governance structures. What about grant? The public institutions under IOE tag will receive a government grant of rupees 1,000 crore, while the private institutions will not get any funding under the scheme. QS World University Rankings. Queril, Simons QS is the leading global career and education network for ambitious professionals looking to further their personal and professional development. Querily Simons. So it's called Querily Simons. QS is a leading global career and education network for ambitious professionals looking to further their personal and professional development. QS develops and successfully implements methods of comparative data collection and analysis used to highlight institutions' strengths. The QS World University Rankings is an annual publication of university rankings, which comprises the global overall and subject rankings, 6 parameters and their weightage of the evaluation. Number 1, academic reputation 40%, employer reputation 10%. Number 3, faculty or student ratio 20%. Number 4, citations per faculty 20%. Number 5, international faculty ratio 5%. Number 6, international student ratio 5%. Now let's come to the next topic, that is global transmission of chikungunya from India. So why was this in the news? Recently, a team from the ICMR, National Institute of Virology, Pune, noted India as an endemic reservoir for the chikungunya virus with persistent global transmissions from the country. The team studied newly sequenced chikungunya viruses isolated during outbreaks that happened between 2014 and 2018. During these years, the virus showed activity in India. The whole genome sequencing revealed that the isolates belonged to the Indian subcontinent sublineage of the Indian Ocean lineage. The Indian Ocean lineage is a subgroup within the East Central South African genotype and was responsible for the resurgence in the epidemic on La Réunion Island and other neighboring islands in the Indian Ocean and in the Indian subcontinent during 2004-2005. This study showed persistent global transmissions from India to China, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Southeast Asian countries, including Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and Papua New Guinea beyond mid-2006, and transmissions to Yemen, China, Japan, Hong Kong, Pakistan, Australia, Bangladesh, and Italy were also noted later on. Chikungunya is a viral disease transmitted to humans by Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus mosquitoes. So they are transmitted by mosquitoes, that is Aedes aegypti and Aedes albopictus mosquitoes. It is caused by an RNA virus that belongs to the alpha virus genus of the family, Togaviridae. It causes fever and severe joint pain, and other symptoms include muscle pain, headache, nausea, fatigue, and rash. The disease shares some clinical signs with dengue and Zika and can be misdiagnosed in areas where they are common. The disease mostly occurs in Africa, Asia, and the Indian subcontinent. However, a major outbreak in 2015 affected several countries of the region of the Americas. Diagnosis. Several methods can be used for diagnosis. Serological tests such as enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay ELISA may confirm the presence of IgM and IgG anti-chikungunya antibodies. IgM antibody levels are highest between 3rd to 5th week after the onset of illness and persist for about 2 months. Samples collected during the first week after the onset of symptoms should be tested by both serological and virological methods, RT-PCR. Treatment. There is no specific antiviral drug treatment for chikungunya, and treatment is directed primarily at relieving the symptoms, including the joint pain, using antipyretics, optimal analgesics, and fluids. Prevention and control. Prevention and control relies heavily on reducing the number of natural and artificial water-filled container habitants that support the breeding of the mosquitoes. This requires mobilization of affected communities. During outbreaks, insecticides may be spread to kill flying mosquitoes, applied to surfaces in and around containers where the mosquitoes land, and used to treat water in containers to kill the immature larvae. Clothing which minimizes skin exposure to the day-biting vectors is advised, and repellents can be applied to exposed skin or to clothing in strict accordance with product level instructions. Now let's come to the next topic, that is the National Center for the Promotion of Employment for Disabled Persons, Ncpedp. So why was this in the news? The recently published report of National Center for the Promotion of Employment of Disabled Persons, Ncpedp, revealed that individuals with disabilities and their families are at a greater risk of poor health and quality of life outcomes because either their social status is affected by their disabilities or their disabilities are made worse by the inaccessibility that comes with social status. The report includes results from a study of 1,067 people with disabilities, about 73% male and 27% female. Over 73% of those surveyed experienced serious difficulties due to the lockdown. Many people living with disabilities have been more of a task post-lockdown because of governmental negligence, combined with inaccessibility to healthcare and rewarding employment. A large class divide has become increasingly visible in the lockdown. Challenges faced by persons with disabilities. People with disabilities have pre existing conditions like MRSA, an infection, or have compromised spinal cords, which make them more susceptible to virus infection. There is no accessibility in the quarantine centers. Social distancing is a privilege for the marginalized classes and is worse for those with disabilities. There is no representation in parliament and hence nobody to ensure the policy made for them is intersectional in nature. For families of disabled people, the crisis is harder to deal with considering that they have been deprived of two things: able bodies and financial sustainability. In spite of talk of redressing caste, class, gender, and other types of discrimination, disability from systemic oppression has largely been ignored. National Center for the Promotion of Employment for Disabled Persons, Ncpedp. It is a non-profit organization registered in 1996 and working as an interface between the government, industry, international agencies, and the voluntary sector towards empowerment of persons with disabilities. It has successfully advocated several policy changes that have positively impacted the lives of people with disabilities, working across to encourage the employment of disabled people, increased public awareness on the issue of disability, empower disabled people with knowledge, information, and opportunities, and ensure easy and convenient access to all public places, products, services, and technologies. Headquartered in New Delhi, Ncpedp has a pan-India presence through the National Disability Network (NDN), and NDN has members from majority states and union territories across the country. It helps in moving away from traditionally held views of charity by increasing their productivity. The Ncpedp has also constituted the National Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities (Ncrpd), consisting of disability sector leaders and experts from across the country that meets at regular intervals to discuss ongoing pertinent issues relevant to people with disabilities and to plan a strategy to address the same. Now let's come to objectives of Ncpedp. The first one is to encourage the employment of people with disabilities. Number two, increase public awareness on disability issues. Number three, empower people with disabilities through appropriate legislation. Number four, ensure public places are accessible to all. Ncpedp works on six core principles, also called the six pillars of the organization, namely education, employment, accessibility, legislation or policy, awareness or communication, and the last one is youth. Now let's come to the next topic, that is NIRF India Ranking 2020 released. So why was this in the news? The National Institute Ranking Framework NIRF ranking list has been released by the Ministry of Human Resource Development MHRD. So what are the highlights of the 2020 rankings? IIT Madras retains first position in overall ranking as well as in engineering. Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore tops the university list. IIM Ahmedabad tops in management category and AIMS occupies the top slot in medical category for a third consecutive year. Miranda House retains first position amongst colleges for a third consecutive year. Maulana Azad Institute of Dental Sciences, Delhi secures first position in dental category. Dental institutions included for the first time in India Rankings 2020. Now let's come to NIRF India Ranking 2020 overall category. IIT Madras, IISc Bangalore, and IIT Delhi. Colleges category Miranda House. So for the colleges category, the first is Miranda House, Delhi University, LSR for Women, Delhi University in second place, and in third place it would be Hindu College of DU. Then for university category, the first is IISc Bangalore, second is JNU New Delhi, the third is BHU Varanasi. For medical discipline, the first goes to AIMS New Delhi, second is PGIMER, Jimmer, it's in Chandigarh. Then the third goes to Christian Medical College, Bangalore. For engineering category, first goes to IIT Madras, second goes to IIT Delhi, third goes to IIT Bombay. And for the law discipline, first goes to National Law School of India University, Bangalore, second goes to NLU New Delhi, third goes to Nalsar University of Law, Hyderabad. For management category, the first goes to IIM Ahmedabad, second goes to IIM Bangalore, third goes to IIM Calcutta. For architecture discipline, first goes to IIT Kharagpur, second goes to IIT Roorkee, third goes to NIT Calicut. For pharmacy discipline, the first goes to Jamia Hamdard University, second goes to Punjab University, third goes to National Institute of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Mohali. For dental college, first goes to Maulana Azad Institute of Dental Science, second goes to Manipal College of Dental Science, third goes to Dr. D.Y. Patil Vidyapith, Pune. Now let's come to NIRF, National Institute Ranking Framework. The NIRF is a methodology adopted by the Ministry of HRD to rank institutions of higher education in India. The framework was approved on 29 September 2015. There are separate rankings for different types of institutions depending on their areas of operation, like universities and colleges, engineering institutions, management institutions, pharmacy institutions, and architecture institutions. The ranking framework evaluates institutions on 5 broad generic groups of parameters, that is teaching. The first parameter would be teaching, second would be learning and resources, DLR, third would be research and professional practices, RP, then the fourth would be graduation outcomes, GO. Then do we have the fifth, would be outreach and inclusivity, OI, and perception, PR. Okay, the first one would be teaching, learning, and resources, TLR. Second would be research and professional practices, RP. Then the third would be graduation outcomes, GO. Then the fourth would be outreach and inclusivity, OI. And the fifth would be perception, that is PR. So, why need such rankings? Rankings help universities to improve their performance on the various ranking parameters and identify gaps in research and areas of improvement. The ranking is necessary for transparency and healthy competition. Now let's come to the next topic, that is Food Safety Index. So why was this in the news? The Food Safety and Standards Authority of India (FSI) has recently released its Food Safety Report for 2019-2020. The index ranks states on 5 parameters of food safety: human resources and institutional data, compliance, food tasting facility, training, and capacity building, besides consumer empowerment. This is the record index. Okay, this is the second index on food safety. So this is the second index on food safety which FSI released on the occasion of World Food Safety Day with the theme Food Safety is Everyone's Business. It was dedicated to those in the supply chain who have ensured the uninterrupted availability of safe food during this COVID-19 pandemic. Highlights of the report: Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, and Maharashtra have topped an index that ranked states ensuring food safety in 2019-2020. So Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, and Maharashtra have topped an index that ranked states ensuring food safety in 2019 and 2020. Among the smaller states, Goa came first, followed by Manipur and Meghalaya. So, among the smaller states, Goa came first, followed by Manipur and Meghalaya. Among Union territories, Chandigarh, Delhi, and the Andaman Islands secured top ranks. So, in the Union territories, Chandigarh, Delhi, and the Andaman Islands secured top ranks. Food Safety and Standards Authority of India (FSI). The FSI is an autonomous body established under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. It has been established under the Food Safety and Standards Act 2006, which is a consolidating statute related to food safety and regulation of India. It is responsible for protecting and promoting public health through the regulation and supervision of food safety. It is headed by a non-executive chairperson appointed by the central government, either holding or has held the position of not below the rank of Secretary to the Government of India. So that's all, guys. See you in my next video. Bye.